Hello everyone! This game was played in 2016. It was the Chess Olympiad in Baku, Azerbaijan, and it's played between Badur Jobava and Ruslan Ponomaryov. And it's quite an interesting game. At first it seems like a really calm game, a peaceful game, and then it just explodes. And here is a very interesting statement by Grandmaster Anton Korobov. He gave it in an interview, regarding this game and Badur Jobava in general. Mr. Korobov says, all the games played by Mr. Jobava are fantastic. He plays very unpredictably and very focused upon his opponent's king. You play everything logically, for example, in Jobava versus Ponomaryov. This game we will analyze, just to centralize, develop, and somehow you find yourself in a situation where you cannot defend your king, very surprisingly. And he described it perfectly, and it's pretty much the same description you would use to maybe describe Mikhail Tal, and such were his games as well. So let's see this game. Jobava has the white pieces and he plays d4. We have knight to f6, knight to c3, d5, bishop to f4, now c5, e3, c captures on d4, e captures on d4, and a6. Preventing knight to b5 to threaten c7, and also preparing to expand on the queen side. Bishop to d3, knight to c6, knight to g2, e2, and e6. We have queen to d2, leaving the options available for castling both queen side and king side, but probably it will be king side. b5, expanding on the queen side and preparing to develop the bishop with bishop to b7. Jobava castles, we have bishop to e7 and a3. Not allowing any b4 ideas or knight to b4 ideas, but also weakening the c4 square, which will black later try to utilize with knight to a5 and knight c4. Bishop to d7, not going for bishop to b7. We have h3, we have castles, rook f to e1, and knight to a5. Now black is ready to play knight to c4, and we have rook a to d1. And first, Mr. Ponomaryov plays queen to b6, and this queen to b6 is, I believe, what motivated Jobava to create such a game full of combinations. But you'll see what I mean. Here he plays knight to g3. The pawn cannot be captured. If you capture the pawn with the queen, bishop captures on h7, and black loses the queen now, since bishop captures on h7 comes with check. So after knight to g3, we have rook f to c8, and now black is definitely ready to play knight to c4. And here we have a most interesting move by Jobava that was definitely inspired by this queen to b6 move. He plays knight to f5. And this is a very interesting move because it leaves black with a couple of options. Do you capture this knight and allow rook captures on e7? If you do, what do you do then? Do you maybe move the bishop with bishop to d8 or bishop to f8? There are a lot of ideas here. So let's see a couple of them. Playing bishop to d8 would actually be a terrible blunder. If bishop to d8, then white has knight captures on g7. And if you capture, you get bishop to h6 with check, king to h8, and queen to g5. Now threatening checkmate with queen to g7 checkmate. So this has to be defended, knight to e8, and now queen to h5. Now positioning your queen to attack h7, as the bishop on d3 is already doing so. So king to g8. After the dark square bishop moves, you would have king f8 to escape, but now comes knight captures on d5. With a tempo on the queen, and after e captures on d5, you have queen to g4 check, and black is lost. It doesn't matter what you do. If you capture the queen with bishop captures on g4, you get rook to e8 with checkmate. If you don't, if you play something like, for example, king to h8, you get rook captures on e8 with check, bishop has to capture, and now queen to g7 checkmate. And lastly, if you simply block with queen to g6, as this bishop is also attacking white's queen, you simply capture the queen, and black still can't capture the queen on g4 because of rook captures on e8 checkmate. So this, after knight to e5, bishop to d8 wouldn't be that great of an idea. But let's see bishop to f8. Bishop to f8 also isn't the best defensive option, because Jobava had this resource of knight to h6 check. And if you play king to h8, you lose this f7 pawn with check. So after g captures on h6, you get bishop captures on h6, and if bishop captures, queen captures. Now the knight on f6 is attacked, and after queen to d8, rook to e5, and there is no defense against rook to g5. So very, very interesting idea, this knight to f5 idea, move. So Ponomarev captured it. E captures on f5 was played, and rook captures on e7. And okay, bishop to e6. I mean, this rook is now trapped. Good luck getting it away from there after a move like king to f8. But Jobava planned for this as well. He plays bishop to h6. And it's interesting. Well, black still has options here. But let's see what happens if king to f8 is played. If king to f8 now, then bishop captures on g7 with check. King captures on e7, and now bishop captures on f6. If you capture the bishop, knight captures on d5 with check, with the royal fork, forking the king and the queen. And if you capture the knight, you get queen to h6 check. King has to move, and you lose this queen on b6. So after bishop to h6, king to f8 definitely isn't something you would want to play. And Ponomarev captured the bishop with g captures on h6. A more resilient maybe idea would be knight to h5, but this also doesn't seem very possible after queen to g5. You do have this knight to c6 move with a tempo on the rook, but now simply rook captures on e6, and after you capture the rook, queen captures on h5. G captures on h6, and queen captures on h6, and a much better position for white. You can't capture a pawn, for example, like this. Or you get knight captures on d5, again with a tempo on the queen and threatening knight to f6. So, after this bishop to h6 move, it was captured. G captures on h6. And here we have queen captures on h6. And what do you play here? Rook captures on c3 was tried by Ponomarev. If you play something like, if you try and save this knight on f6, for example, with knight to e4, this simply doesn't work, because bishop captures on e4, and after, for example, d captures on e4, knight to d5, and black is lost. The threat is knight to f6 check, followed with queen to h7 checkmate. You have to capture this knight, and after bishop captures, again you lose the queen on b6. So after this, queen to h6, rook captures on c3 was played, and now not capturing the rook or the knight, but a brilliant idea. Queen to g5 check, forcing the king to go to f8. So king to f8 was played, and now queen captures on f6. Now guarding the rook, also eyeing this queen on b6, and also in some variations threatening queen to h8, and grabbing this rook on a8. And what's the real plan here? Well, if black tries to save this rook, for example with rook c to c8, you get bishop captures on f5, and there is nothing white can do here. If you play rook to e8, you get bishop captures on e6, and this is lost. If you play something like queen captures and rook captures, queen to h8 check, and you lose the rook on a8, this is winning for white. And after this, bishop captures on e6. If you play rook captures on e7, this is the whole point of getting the king to go to f8, and now you have queen to h8 checkmate. So brilliant idea, this queen to g5, pushing the king away to f8. So after this, queen to f6, rook captures on d3 was played. But now c captures on d3, and Ruslan Ponomarev resigned the game. Because the threats are still there, this doesn't really achieve anything. For example, if queen to c6, guarding that rook against any bishop captures on e6, and queen to h8 ideas with grabbing the rook on a8, rook to e1, and black is helpless here. Again, rook to e8, rook captures, and again you lose the queen. If you play rook captures on e7, a queen to h8 is checkmate. And if you try to maybe hang on with queen captures on e6. You get rook captures, and now queen to d8 check. And after rook blocks or the king moves away, you lose the knight on a5 with queen captures on a5. And that is it. After this c captures on d3 move, Ruslan Ponomarev resigned the game, and well, this masterpiece was created. So that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. As usual, you can check all my previous videos here. I would like to thank Dame Plitvarec, Alan Kolnik, Sean Wilcoxon, and Andrew Sinclair for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon.